Welcome to the HyperFast Podcast. I'm Keri Shull, and I am so excited for our guest today because she specializes in reverse engineering your goals to create the business and life that you've always wanted. And you guys know that's very much in alignment with how I think. Jess Lenouvel is the founder of the Listings Lab and also the best-selling book, More Money, Less Hustle, Becoming a Seven-Figure Real Estate Agent. So Jess, welcome. We're so excited to have you today.
I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So one of the things you said before we started is you live in the Bahamas and you are what you call location independent. I would guess for a lot of our listeners are like, tell me how that happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think that so many people feel like they have to live in the market that they ultimately sell in. But I mean, we live in an online world, especially I would say since 2020. You have a lot more freedom to do kind of what you want. So, we have agents who, want to live in Costa Rica for 6 months. We have agents who want to who want to live in Miami for 6 months and then they sell in Canada. We have people who are doing all kinds of different things. Now, I live in the Bahamas. We've lived here full time for about 2.5 years. I run my business from here. And I don't think that there's any reason why someone can't do that. I just think that there's this kind of old school way of looking at real estate businesses and the structure of them, and everyone's just following the same structure and the same path because it's the way that it's always been done. But ultimately, you can figure out what you want to do and what you want your business to look like. And we can reverse engineer and figure out what kind of business and what the structure of the business needs to look like for you to have the life that you want, not the other way around. Yeah.
I love it. So let's talk about your journey when you decided, okay, I want to live somewhere warm, even though I'm from Toronto.
Yeah.
How did you walk us through, like, take us back to that self who knew your vision was to live somewhere else?
Yeah.
What were the steps that you took in your business to help you move in the direction of being?
Well, I mean, by that point, I already could kind of work from wherever. So I sold real estate actively from about 2005 until 2017.
Okay.
So 2018 is when I founded the Listings Lab. Now, at that point, I didn't do what so many people who kind of go into the training coaching industry do, which is kind of like dabble in both. I'm one of those like all or nothing, like I'm going for it. So I actually, I kind of parked my license and really kind of went all in on the Listings Lab. When I first founded the Listings Lab, I actually moved to California for 6 months to be around other digital marketers and other people who were really innovating in the space so that I was like in that world a lot more than if I had just kind of stayed at home. So I moved to California for 6 months, immersed myself in that world.
Can I ask you a question about like that part of your journey? Just because I'm super curious.
Of course.
Who were the people you connected with in California that inspired you or helped to calibrate your thinking around the digital marketing space?
So I basically just went to, I moved to Venice Beach because at the time it's not the same anymore. There's nobody lives in California anymore because of taxes. It's too expensive. But at the time I really dropped myself into the other people who were in that digital marketing, coaching, training business. But a lot of people, I mean, if you know anything about the coaching industry, there's a lot of coaches who coach coaches to coach coaches to coach coaches, right? There's just so much of that. But I still got to learn. I learned so much about different structures of different businesses. I got to just sit in different people's ad managers and play with different ads, different kinds of copy, different kinds of ad sets, different kinds of campaigns that people were running, and how they were able to teach it in a way that was really effective and that people were actually getting it. I think in real estate, it's one of those things too. A lot of people in real estate don't have a tech background the way that a lot of people in like the coaching world do. So because of that, what I was able to do was really learn how to teach it in a way that was really manageable. So that was something that was really, really important to me. I also just wanted to be around people who were doing big things in a similar space, because I find that, real estate, again, can be very traditional and very old school. And I didn't want what we were building to look that way at all.
Right. I got to spend some time with like Billy Jean as an example
Yep.
in San Diego, and I absolutely adore him, and Jason Fladlien, who does a
Yep.
lot with like webinars and flows. And so I've spent a lot of time in California too. That's why I was curious if we had different mentors.
100%. I think that that world is actually pretty small.
Yeah.
And so there's always going to be a lot of overlap. I mean, that was in 2018. And since then, I've either collaborated, worked with, or hired a tremendous amount of people that I learned from back
Yeah.
then. Right. So it's been a really, really interesting kind of journey since then. But then after California, because I was Canadian, I could only stay for 6 months. So I went back to Toronto, built the listings lab, and bought my dream house, what I thought was my dream house in Toronto. We started gutting it, we started renovating it, we started doing all of this stuff. And my husband and I kept asking ourselves, where can we put palm trees? So there was an indoor pool. So we were like, okay, how many palm trees can we put in here? And then I remember looking at him and being like, I feel like we're doing this wrong. I feel like we're trying to make this something that it's never going to be. So we started really actively talking about moving somewhere else. And the Bahamas fit the bill, but it took us, I mean, we looked everywhere in the world. We looked at from everywhere, from Thailand to Bali to Costa Rica to everywhere. And the Bahamas kind of ticked all the boxes. And then, I mean, there's 700 islands and keys in the Bahamas. So then from there, we had to narrow it down to the island that we're on, which is, we're in Eleuthera. So it was just, it was a process, but we tend to make decisions very quickly. So we went through the process very quickly. And, yeah, before the house in Toronto was fully renovated, we'd already moved here.
Oh my gosh. I don't know you very well, but I love you already. I'm like, yes! Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay. So then walk us through the listings lab, like the launch
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
And by the way, good for you for going all in.
Yeah, thank you. It's who I am. I can't do it any other way.
Yep. I love it. Okay. So
yeah, so we launched the listings lab. So the listings lab initially was a lot of people who already knew me when we first launched. I got a lot of people who would call and message and be like, "Hey, I heard that you're teaching what you did." Because I had a lean multi-7-figure generating team. We had 3 agents on the team. We were doing several hundred deals a year. It was a lean, mean machine. And everything that we generated was all generated online. So there was a lot of people who kind of came out of the woodwork and they were like, oh my gosh, she's teaching her secrets. So our initial launch, there were a lot of people from Toronto, a lot of people who had, known me from being in the market, who were saying, okay, you know what? I really want to learn from you. I want to learn. Tell me how you did it. So there was that. And I mean, I launched a funnel from day one. Before I had made $1 in this business, I was running psychologically driven campaigns. So yeah, the program grew really quickly. Yeah, I mean, I would say that like even in the first year, we had a couple hundred people go through the program. It's been iterated a couple of times now as things grow and change, and we're actually in the process of a full revamp right now. But what makes the Listings Lab a little bit different than most programs is that everybody who goes through it has lifetime access. So because they never lose access to it, like when we do this revamp, even the people who invested in the program in 2018 are still going to get the entire revamp, access to support, everything that they need. You never lose anything.
That's cool.
So it's a really interesting model that I hadn't really seen anyone else doing at the time, but really worked for us, because the first round that we took people through, we had someone who got pregnant. We had someone whose mom got sick. We had life that started to happen. And I realized the like in and out in 90 days didn't make me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because then there were people who had invested in it that I was saying, like, you didn't finish it.
Right.
So very quickly, we went to the lifetime access model, and anybody who had been through it or anybody who had invested in it right from the beginning was given full lifetime access.
Okay, cool. So walk us through, if you're talking to me and I'm saying to you, I want more listings.
Yeah.
You know, so many people who are watching this right now are having that thought.
Yeah.
What would make me decide to do Listings Lab? How would it benefit me? What through what I would take away from it, and
So
how you would give me that knowledge.
every single thing that we teach in any of our programs, because the Listings Lab is only one of our multiple programs that we now have, but it's like the OG. And so everything that we teach is all based on attraction marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't teach a chasing based system. I don't teach cold calling. I don't teach door knocking. I don't teach any geo farming or anything like that. Everything that I do is about finding the people who are your people in an online space and attracting them to you. So inbound client generation, which I think is one of the things that really differentiates us, because what we're generating are people saying, hey, I've seen your stuff. I've been lurking. I'm ready to go. Can you come and list my house? It's not the, hey, I'm going to interview 5 different people and we'll see who's the cheapest. It's very much like really building that know, like, and trust that everybody talks about online, but no one actually builds. A lot of it is based in the psychological journey from stranger to client. So all of that is built in like the marketing foundations, which I think is missing from 99% of real estate marketing. Mm-hmm. So everything that we teach starts with, who are you trying to attract? Who's the target demographic? What are their pains, problems, fears, and desires? And then from there, building out a messaging stack that actually will take that person through that psychological journey from stranger to inbound client. Now, a lot of the time people are like, well, is it Facebook or is it TikTok or is it like, what is it? Well, I don't know yet until you tell me who your target demographic is, because it's not about what platform do I want you on. It's about what platform does your ideal client base spend the most time on. Mm-hmm. So everything that we're doing is customized or targeted to the people that you want to attract, where they spend their time, and what they need to hear from you in order to be inbound clients. So we cover everything from all of the messaging, the niching down, the platforms, but also, so we always start organically, because I think that there's so many agents who are spending so much money throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and saying, I'm running Facebook ads, but they're not working. And I look at their Facebook ads and they look like a business card that says like, call me. And it's really, that's not effective marketing.
Right.
So if your messaging isn't generating business inbound organically, it's not ready to put money behind it. So the rule of thumb that we usually use is if you're not generating a minimum of 3 deals a month from your organic social media, then you're not ready to run paid traffic. Okay. So from there, like, and we have people who have been in our programs for a while who are generating 10 deals a month. Like we have people who are doing hundreds of deals from organic social media, but aren't even running paid traffic yet because they don't need to. Wow. So there's a very different, like, kind of customized approach to how we go about this, but it's all rooted in psychology. It's all rooted in that 9-point psychological journey from stranger to client that we teach. So a lot of this really just comes down to, if you want listings, then you have to niche down into the target demographic that is selling. So it can't, and I'm a really big believer that luxury isn't a niche, and people hate me for it, but luxury is not a niche. Luxury just means rich people. And you would never run an ad that says, I only work with rich people. It would make you feel so gross. But I think that we can, like in real estate, we convince ourselves that things don't mean what they mean so that we feel better about them. But ultimately, like, instead of saying, okay, I only work with luxury, it's like, okay, great. Who is the demographic that is transacting in that luxury market? Are they upsizers? Are they downsizers? Okay, great. Let's then focus on the downsizers, get those luxury listings by actually using real psychology as opposed to just saying that you're a luxury agent. Right. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. So what I was going to ask you is, when you look at the avatars that people bring to you,
Yeah.
it's specific, and somebody says a first-time home buyer, and somebody says
Mhm.
it's going through a divorce, and somebody else says, an upsizer or a downsizer, given where we are with interest rates in the market climate,
Mhm.
what do you find to be the easiest avatar to succeed with? And for the listings lab, obviously, a first-time home buyer.
It's market dependent. I think that there's so many different things happening in so many different markets. Our most popular avatar that people tend to pick is upsizers or young families, mostly because of the longevity of the client, like the long-term value of that client, and that, you're going to get 2 transactions out of it.
Right.
Right. So you're going to have the list of whatever they're initially selling, their starter home. You're going to get the buy with like the upsized home that they're looking at. And even if they think that they've bought their forever home, everybody moves within 10 years, right? So you are also going to get that long-term value of whatever kind of comes next, as long as your nurture system is, effective and you're staying top of mind over that time period. So that tends to be one that tends to be like really popular, but we're also seeing incredible successes with more specific or more interest-based niches. Like I say niche, I'm Canadian. Um, Things like dog owners,
Hmm.
like people who are, looking for backyards or looking for, larger property or looking for something that's going to work better for their animals. We're seeing that. We're seeing, other specialized, other, tighter communities like the LGBTQ plus community. We're seeing there's a lot of different ways that you can niche down that you can speak to. I think that specialized communities and the ability to build a personal brand within those specialized communities is incredibly powerful. Even with the upsizers, we have, my COO, who now essentially runs the whole back end of my business, started out as a member. So she started out as a listings lab member, went through the listings lab, and she specialized in growing families. And with that, she started a mom's Facebook group, and she was getting 7 or 8 deals a month from her mom's Facebook group alone, on
Wow.
top of everything else that she was generating. So, I think that people just really want to connect with people who understand them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can choose a demographic that you also fit into, that you can also speak to. I get people all the time who are like, I want to work with I want to work with divorces. And I'm like, great. Have you been divorced? And they'll say no. And I'm like, well, you can't. Like, pick something, let's look at this and choose something that you can actually speak to from experience.
That's a tough one if you're working, like I've done a ton of business with downsizers as an example. That was my first niche when I was in my 20s, which is hilarious. But I picked that niche because I wanted builder business, and that I had a background in, and I knew that they needed land in order to get the builders. Right. So yeah.
It's different though when you're attracting people through messaging online, right?
Yeah.
So like a lot of it comes down to, do people resonate with your story?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so a lot of it has to be in an area that, and honestly, to be perfectly honest, like a lot of people who focus on downsizers have not downsized themselves yet, but they can resonate with their kids. Because a lot of downsizers or a lot of seniors and a lot of people who are kind of in that phase of their life, their kids are actually really involved in the decision making in the process. And so if you are the same age or you can resonate with their kids, it's kind of the same thing. So it's really just understanding, who are we speaking to and who are we targeting? It doesn't matter. You don't necessarily have to have downsized in order to speak to the people who are going to choose you from a downsizing standpoint.
That makes sense. Well, and also if you can have the emotional connection, because I think when you're thinking about the psychology of that demographic and how to appeal to them, they have to understand that you care about their journey and you have
100%
a connection with it. Yeah, that makes sense completely. So if somebody who's listening to this right now is like, okay, Jess, sign me up, like I want to do the listing lab, how would they go about contacting you? And then what would the process for them look like from the point that they sign up to when they're going to start getting listings? Because everybody has urgency about growing their
I think that it's the urgency that actually makes people make bad decisions. I think that everybody is always like, oh, my pipeline's empty or my sphere isn't performing the way that it used to. And it's like, well, that's normal. And we expected this. Like everybody saw this coming, but nobody seemed to properly prepare for it. Right. And so many agents are out there running ads and talking to the top 3% of the market. I always look at it as like a pyramid, right? They're only talking to the top 3% of the market. And I always joke that like it's like going on a dating site for married people who don't want to cheat, right? Like that top 3% of the market already has an agent and you are hammering them with, are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? Like, I need listings like right now. And those people who actually are ready to go, they're not actively looking for you. So the reality is you're 30 to 60 days out, no matter what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so yes, you may get lucky and you may get some stuff that kind of falls from the sky, but the reality is that it doesn't matter what you're doing
How
and
you're
what and
advertising.
how you're
Yeah.
generating this. You're always, if you're actually going to take someone from problem aware or even information gathering stage, and you're going to get them to a point where they are like coming to you from as an inbound client, they're going to be 30 to 90 days out.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that groundwork has to happen like now. You have to start, so many people overthink things and they're like, oh, I'll start on Monday or I'll start tomorrow or I'll do this thing or I'll wait until I close my next deal. But all they're doing is they're pushing that build and they're pushing that success process back. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear my dog.
No, not at all, actually. Like it.
Okay, good. So a lot of this really just comes down to like so to answer your question, the first thing that we do is we do what we call a discovery call, and we have a conversation just to figure out what program is the right fit for that person, for the challenges that they're having, and for the kind of business that they want to build. Because we have a program for agents under 100,000. We have a program for agents who are at 6 figures and want to essentially build the marketing foundations for 7 figures. And then we also have a program that is like, I need, I'm already doing 3, 4, 500,000 and I want to build systems and automations and marketing. And it's essentially like a full business overhaul. So we have a couple of different levels, a couple of different layers of programs. So that first initial call is basically like a diagnostic call, like which direction should we go to? Then we book a second longer 1-hour call to really dig into the program that we think is the right one for you and go through all the details, everything you could possibly want to know from start to finish, and really identify whether or not it's a good fit. We don't work with everybody. It's not one of those things that like, oh, if I book a call and I have the money, they'll take me. That's not really the way that we work. I'm a really big advocate for if you're not really ready, we won't push you there. So
that's funny because the first time I was ever a real estate coach, I had the highest failure rate of all of my coaching clients. And they're like, Keri, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, these people weren't interested in doing the work. So I told them they were wasting their money. And they were like, that's not how you do it. I'm like, that's how I do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. Why would you have somebody pay for something if they're not doing the work, right?
And they're not ready to actually like commit to it. And I think that, that's the other reason why we're lifetime, is because sometimes people think that they're ready and they're not. They come into the program and then honestly, and then honestly, like 6 months later, they come back, they're like, okay, I got my stuff together and like, I'm ready to go now. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's get you back in. But
then are they working with a consultant? Are they watching?
Yeah. So it's both. We have the actual structure of the program that people can go through whenever they want. They can go through it at 3:00 in the morning. But we also have, for life, we have 2 calls a week that they have access to. Every single thing that you do in our program gets submitted. We review it with a fine-tooth comb. And we go through it to make sure that you're actually doing things correctly. This is a new skill for most people. And so, our support levels are very, very high. We want to make sure that people, and we also have a support community. So like you never go like more than a day without getting everything that you need, without getting answers, without getting attention, without getting something reviewed. I have quite a big support team. every single person who has been through, every single person who is on the support side started out as a member, saw success with the program, went through the program. We trained them on how to deliver this really well. So they are people who have real estate expertise. They're
Yeah.
not just marketers.
Awesome.
So it's a very, very different group, and you get very different feedback than you would necessarily expect. Some people get frustrated. They're like, oh my gosh, she tore this apart. And we're like, yes, because what's the point in having you go through this process if it's not going to bear fruit?
Right. Yeah. Which how valuable. I think people often spin their wheels because there's just a couple little tweaks that need to be made, and that support loop isn't there with
Yeah,
everything that you do. There's
agreed.
so many programs where you go through coaching and then it's not working and you don't know why. So I think that's a really, really cool component to what you've built. Um, if somebody's serious, like they
Yeah.
think, it might be a good fit for them, how should they get in touch with you?
So you can kind of message me anywhere, or you can actually book a direct call. So our website is thelistingslab.com. In there is just a book a call button. You can send me a message on any platform. You can send me a message on Instagram, on Facebook. We'll
Cool.
get you booked in.
I love it. And are there a couple people who worked with your program that are like killing it, that if they were trying to do research to understand, because that's what they all do, right?
So I always find that like when I give out people's names, they end up, it actually hurts their reach. And I'm going to explain this, because what ends up happening is they get a whole bunch of people in real estate following them. And
Mm,
then that's not their target demographic. And so what we actually teach is that when you start this program, I want you to unfriend the majority of real estate agents that are on your profile. I want you to get rid of them, because a lot of people accidentally start speaking to other real estate agents instead of speaking to their ideal client base. And then with the way that the algorithm works is that, they put this very niche specific content in front of those people. It's not relevant to the real estate agents. It doesn't get the engagement, and then it actually drops their overall success in terms of how many people are actually seeing their content. Now, I know that this is the opposite of the way that most people in real estate think of social media. They think that, I'm going to do a real estate agent follow train, and I'm going to have 800 agents follow me. That's actually hurting your success in terms of getting your content in front of the right people.
totally.
So yes, I have a lot of people who have done who've been really successful. I actually have a really, really small market too. I got a message from somebody in Fredericton, New Brunswick, sent me a message on Friday saying that they, for quarter one, are almost at what they did in total last year.
Wow.
And I'm talking like they did 1.4 last year. So they've just hit the million for quarter one in terms of growth, in terms of GCI. So like income, they've made $1 million in the first quarter, and 100% of their business is generated on social media.
That is incredible. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been fascinating. Leaving listeners with something, if they have that itch, they're
Yeah.
trying to put palm trees in the wrong room, right?
Yeah.
What's something that you did to like clarify your vision and get in motion with this idea of creating your ideal life?
So my friend Alex Moscow, really good friend of mine, has this saying, and I actually have it on a banner when I run events. It says, "Results don't take time; they take courage."
Mm.
And I think that is like really a motto to live by. I think so often we put things off, or we spend time to save money, and that is the opposite of what you should be doing in order to get to ideally the life that you want. Um, I, on a regular basis, I would say once a quarter, sit down with my husband and we say, okay, so here's where we are. And is there anything that we would change? And in the dream life, like if there was absolutely no limitations, no money limitations, no time limitations, no nothing. Are we doing exactly what we want to be doing every day? What does our ideal schedule look like? And how can we get closer to that?
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was amazing.
Thank
And
you.
for anyone listening, reach out to Jess. Thank you for listening to the podcast. And hopefully, for some of you that do have that itch, you will follow Jess's advice and you will reach out to her so you can generate more listings.
Thank you.
Bye.